Hello there, I'm Randy Skretvet, the author of Laurel and Hardy, The Magic Behind the Movies, and we are watching Putting Pants on Philip, which was filmed Tuesday, September 13th through Friday, September the 23rd, and released on December 3rd, 1927. Now, it's kind of a puzzler as to who directed this. As you see, Clyde Bruckman is credited here as the director on the film's titles and in all of the advertising materials, and he's also the sole director credited for every one of the shooting days in the Roach Studios 1927 datebook. However, Stan Laurel remembered Leo McCarey as the director of this film, and Leo McCarey remembered Leo McCarey as the director of this film. And now we see Mr. Hardy, whose name is Honorable Piedmont Mumblethunder. Now, a lot of sources for some reason call him J. Piedmont Mumblethunder, and I don't know where the J came from, but it's just Honorable Piedmont Mumblethunder. Leo McCarey recalled to historian and future director Peter Bogdanovich in 1969, he said, "I remember this film very well because it was a pet idea of mine, and nobody liked it. Stan had a weakness. He didn't want to submit to the crotch measurement. It embarrassed him. It made a whole picture, but no one else wanted to make it. As producer, by then I had 3 other films on my hands and I hadn't directed anything for some time, hadn't even been down on the set. Since no one liked the idea of the film, I was so furious about it that I took my coat off and went out on the set and directed it. I made the film in about 6 days, telling myself that at least I'd be popular with tailors." Now, that elderly gentleman is Alfred Fisher, and we'll see him later, and also that SS Miramar gangplank. We saw that in Sailors Beware. Here we have Sam Lufkin, who is in more Laurel and Hardy films than anybody except Charlie Hall, and this is one of his larger roles, although we will remember him best as the cop in The Music Box. He was born in Salt Lake City in 1891. He is in 165 films from 1922 to 1951. 99 of those are for Hal Roach, and 39 of them are with Laurel and Hardy. And he died at the age of 60 in 1952. Now, in a moment here, in the scene where Sam Lufkin is examining Stan's scalp, probably for lice, you're going to see a pretty young brunette wearing a dark cloche hat. And she's going to be watching and laughing very animatedly in the background, directly in the center of the shot, so watch for her. This is Venice Marie Jepperson. She was a dancing student who was dating the Hal Roach cameraman Art Lloyd. And Art wanted to impress her by getting her a part in the movies, and although the credited photographer on this film is George Stevens, Art clearly had some influence on this sequence. And Miss Jefferson must have been duly impressed because she and Art got married on January 1st, 1928, and they remained a happy couple until his death in November of 1954. And there she is, right there in the middle of the shot, wearing the dark hat and kind of bobbing back and forth as she laughs. There's Venice. We remember her as Venice Lloyd, and I first met her in 1979, and I will take credit for introducing her to the wonderful organization Sons of the Desert, which became a very, very happy part of her later life, and she paid out of her own pocket to come to several of the conventions of the Sons of the Desert. You can also see her as a secretary in the Laurel and Hardy short Chickens Come Home. Now notice here that Stan's hair is still growing in from the second 100 years. And this is kind of the start of the fright wig, the Stan Laurel fright wig, although you would see that a little bit more in the next film, which is The Battle of the Century. Now here, Mr. Lufkin is trying to figure out just where Stan has been vaccinated, and you'll see that Stan is rather shy and prudish in some cases. It's not the arm, it's not the leg. We have to go off by ourselves to show you just where my vaccination mark is. It's evidently somewhere under that kilt. Now, Laurel and Hardy had ties to Scotland. Oh, by the way, that picture of Babe is a portrait from his days at Chadwick with Larry Seaman from a couple of years earlier. Stan was born in Ulverston, which was then in Lancashire, but now in Cumbria, England. But his family moved to Glasgow when he was a boy, and he worked in the box office of his father's theater there, the Metropole. Stan had made his debut as a boy comedian in 1906 in Glasgow at the Britannia Panopticon, a small music hall which is still in business. By the way, I think we are at the Los Angeles Harbor in San Pedro here. Now, Oliver Hardy's mother was of Scottish derivation, and so was her maiden name, Norvell, Norvell, which was Oliver's actual first name. There's Dorothy Coburn. We'll tell you about her in just a moment. In 1935, Laurel and Hardy made a feature film for Hal Roach called Bonnie Scotland. And of course, their most famous and popular supporting actor, James Finlayson, was from Larbert, Scotland. And it's a bit surprising that he's not in this film, but I do believe that at this point, Finlayson had left the Roach lot for a while to make some feature films for First National. Laurel and Hardy visited Glasgow and Edinburgh in July 1932, and again in June 1947, in March 1952, and March 1954. Now, if you go to the internet and you search for, let me get the correct name for it, go for Filming Locations, Putting Pants on Philip, 1927, Laurel and Hardy. You will find Chris Bungo's wonderful Then and Now video, which details where all of the outdoor scenes in Culver City were filmed and what those locations look like now, and mostly Culver Boulevard and Main Street. And happily, many of the landmarks that you will see in this film are still standing. There's another great website which is called Another Nice Mess, and you can find that at Lord Heath, HEATH.com. Dave Lord Heath has created a tremendous resource of information about all Hal Roach films and the people who appeared in them. Now, we are walking on Culver Boulevard, near 9614 Culver Boulevard. And before long, you are going to see very prominently in this film the Culver Hotel. At least that's what we call it now, the Culver Hotel. It was a 6-story triangular building, the Harry H. Culver Building. And it opened on September 4th, 1924, on Main Street between Washington and Culver. The lower 2 floors were Culver's offices, and the top 4 floors were the Hunt Hotel, and now the whole building is the Culver Hotel. So there's more information about that at culverhotel.com. There is a part of the Culver Hotel right there. And let's see. That is at 9400 Culver Boulevard. All right, very good. Now, you'll notice a lot of extras in this film. This was a fairly costly production because of the extensive location filming, and also because of the large number of extras. Reportedly, there were several hundred. You're going to see more and more of them as the film goes on. And, of course, they're all required to gape at Philip and his kilt. And Hal Roach Studios historian Richard W. Mann says, surviving candid still photos taken after work back at the studio show these same folks all lined up, backed up in twisted serpentine fashion, waiting to get to the payroll window for the $5 a day wage. It was quite a sight and registered a durable memory in the minds of most who were there. All right, there we go. Now watch, there's going to be a little dog. I think that's a found little bit of gold. That was at Culver Boulevard with Main Street crossing, and the building on the right with the awnings is 3850 Main Street. And they do kind of alternate between actual Main Street and the back lot. See, now we're on the back lot, and you're going to see that newsstand in the next film, which is Battle of the Century. So here we are on the New York street of the Hal Roach Studios back lot. And Stan is going to have a scene here which sort of predates Marilyn Monroe in the 7-Year Itch. I don't know if those grates actually do have that sort of wind force, but it certainly makes for memorable scenes in movies. And, Stan has a snuff box, which also figures in the 1935 Laurel and Hardy film Bonnie Scotland. Oh, there you go. Scotsmen wear boxer shorts. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. And fittingly, a plaid outline on the fabric. Oh, there you see the pink pup, which again was nothing more than a plaque, although we do get to go inside the pink pup in a couple of Laurel and Hardy films. This dame ain't got no lingerie on. That's right. That's going to figure as the key point of this motion picture. And once again, Leo McCarey remembered this very vividly. I wonder if this film would have been made after the production code came in July of 1934, being that it, it has to do with Stan getting properly covered south of the border. I don't know if Joseph Green who was the head censor at the Hayes office, if he would have approved of this. But this is very much a film of the Roaring Twenties. And now we're going to see Dorothy Coburn come up again in just a moment. Dorothy was an experienced horse rider, and she also later became the stand-in for Ginger Rogers in the talkie era. She was from Great Falls, Montana, born there June 7th, 1904. There's the Culver Hotel on the right. And her father acted in and produced westerns, and she's credited with 30 film appearances from 1926 through 1936. 21 of these are for Hal Roach, and 12 movies with Laurel and Hardy. And she passed away in the San Pedro Peninsula Hospital in May 1978 at the age of 73. And now we have, as the tailor, we have Harvey Clark. And he appeared in only 4 films at the Hal Roach Studios, and this is his only film with Laurel and Hardy. He was a Boston native, and he was, however, a very busy bit player because he appears in more than 200 films from 1915 until 1938, which was the year that he died from a heart attack at 52. Now, something that's always kind of puzzled me is that Stan Laurel and other people have called this the first official Laurel and Hardy film. Now, in between Call of the Cuckoo and this film, Laurel and Hardy had made Hats Off, which we don't have a copy of yet. And Hats Off was given a tremendous publicity campaign. So the Roach Studio publicists had planted news articles proclaiming the birth of a new comedy team for Duck Soup, The Second 100 Years, and Hats Off, which makes it difficult for me to understand why Stan Laurel or anyone else would consider this film to be, this and The Battle of the Century, to be the first 2 Laurel and Hardy pictures. Now, I thought that maybe this film was the first film where Laurel and Hardy's names were above the title. But the cutting continuity for Hats Off shows us that they were billed that way in that film. And neither do Laurel and Hardy play their soon-to-be permanent characters here, because obviously Hardy is a prominent businessman. Laurel is a Scottish girl chaser, although you get the impression that if he caught the girl, he wouldn't know what to do next. They have different names, so it's a very unusual Laurel and Hardy film. And in a sense, it really belongs more to earlier things like Slipping Wives. But my friend Ed Watts, who has written books about Harry Langdon and Wheeler and Woolsey, made the observation that in previous films, either Stan was dominant or Ollie was dominant. And in this film, both of them have great scenes. And maybe that's how Stan thought of this as the first Laurel and Hardy film, because the amount of footage and the number of scenes were evenly divided between the two. And that could very well be. That's a good observation. We can be reasonably sure that Leo McCarey directed this scene anyway, even if Clyde Bruckman is the credited director in the 1927 Hal Roach Studios date book, which tells us what was shot at the studio every day. And those are at the University of Southern California. They're a tremendous resource, as are the payrolls, the studio payrolls, which those are quite a chore to go through, but they do yield a lot of great information if you're a researcher into these films. I was going to tell you about Harry Culver, because we see the Culver Hotel so frequently in this. Who was he? What is Culver City? Well, Harry Hazel Culver was born in Milford, Nebraska in 1880. He served in the Spanish-American War, and then he worked in the Philippines as a reporter for the Manila Times. And at 30, in 1910, he began working in real estate in Southern California, and he announced his plans to create Culver City in 1913. It was incorporated in September of 1917. And Culver City boasted the MGM Studios, which is now Sony Pictures, the Thomas H. Ince Studio, later the Selznick Studio, and now the Culver Studios, and the Hal Roach Studios, which sadly are no longer in business or even existing. Stan, sadly, has been rather deflowered here in getting the inseam measurement. And it's such a strange character, because one moment he's this crazy girl chaser and running after Dorothy Coburn, and the next He's very virginal, so I don't quite know what to make of this character. Anyway, before long, we're going to be doing some more location shooting. Once again, you'll see Culver Boulevard and Main Street, and you can go there today and still see a lot of the locations that are featured in this film. Now, I think in fact, that's the back lot. I can tell from the street behind us that that's the back lot. But there's some very inventive direction there where all you see are the feet running and you know exactly what's happened from prior experience. Now, in just a moment, you're going to see some more location shooting. Nope, Stan's not in the changing room. And he left the trousers behind. He just has no idea why anybody would wear these things. All right, now we're on the back lot, and now we're back in Culver City. And there we have the Culver Hotel. And Babe is running there with, he's on Culver Boulevard and Main Street. And in some of these shots, you can see the Baldwin Hills oil wells in the background. Up, now we're going to go on a double-decker bus, so hang on here. And we're going to see Alfred Fisher again in just a moment. There we go. Now, let's see. This is, we're going to see some of the Culver City businesses at the time. We're going to see Advanced Shops with suits and dresses. We're going to see Cute Kitty Shop at 3844 Main Street. And we're going to see a shop that sells sewing machines at 3840 and 42 Main Street. There's the Baldwin Hills oil derricks in the background there. And there, once again, is Alfred Fisher. Now, he was born in 1849 in Bristol, England, and thus he is 78 years old here. And we saw him very briefly as a prison guard in the second 100 years. He's in 15 known movies from 1915 to 1928. 3 of them are for Hal Roach, and the third one being the Our Gang short, Fair and Muddy. Now, every time that Hal Roach made a film, he had to send it to New York for approval from the executives at Lowe's Incorporated, which was the parent company of MGM. And the MGM executives, or the Lowe's executives, felt that this picture warranted an unprecedented amount of ballyhoo. Jeff Lazarus, who was an MGM overseer, he sent the following memo to a colleague named H.C. Arthur Jr., and he said, "We have already notified your division that soon they will be playing another Laurel Hardy comedy, the second one in the series," there you go, "and one of the funniest things I have ever looked at. Be sure they have an intensive campaign on their screens and in their programs and lobbies 1 week in advance of the time they play the comedy. I want to be particularly sure that they do it justice in the regular channels such as advertisements, program, lobby, trailers, newspaper stories." Now, this final scene with Dorothy Coburn, we're once again on the back lot. And since the back lot no longer exists, what this is now, the corner is the north end of Carson Street and the east end of Landmark Street. So you can see where this used to be. Now, if you go to the photo gallery, you will see several stills that indicate that after this final scene, Mr. Hardy, or Mr. Mumblethunder, extricated himself from the soggy situation that he finds himself in. And now, as he tries to walk down the street, the crowd begins chasing him. So instead of chasing after Philip because of his funny kilt, they're chasing after Mr. Mumblethunder because he is soaked, as you will see in just a moment here. And this is a stock Hal Roach gag. This shows up in a lot of Hal Roach movies, and Mr. Hardy was no stranger to them. In fact, Habeas Corpus also ends with a very similar gag here. So whether or not this is the first official Laurel and Hardy comedy in any way, shape, or form, it's still a very, very well-made comedy. It was one of Hal Roach's very favorites of all the Laurel and Hardy pictures, or actually of all the films he produced. and we are very happy to finally have it in a wonderful print. So, as the crowd runs toward Mr. Mumblethunder, this is Randy Skretvit, and this has been Putting Pants on Philip, and I thank you for listening.